Welcome to day 24 of the escape plan. Today, we're going to be going over and talking about the important part of the sales call where we are going to be discussing the cost of inaction for the prospect. What does that look like? So, to kind of recap, in the last video, we got our prospect to become clear on what they want, and we got very, I want to say, emotional with them so that they can really kind of feel it, right? They feel it. They know what it feels like to get there and what it's going to do to their life, and they can really just see it as a real possibility, right? Because a lot of people lack that confidence, and that's what we need to fill them with. But before we present and pitch the offer that we're selling, we do something that a lot of people skip, and this is basically where we get the prospect to think about what happens if they don't change. What happens if they don't do anything about their situation and they stay where they are? This is called the consequence section, I like to call it. Just the cost of inaction, really. And it's one of the most powerful tools in sales, really. Because what we're doing here is we're helping the prospect realize that doing nothing is a decision that they can take, and that decision has a cost. So we're just making them very clear on that. And making them very clear on that is going to help them make a decision. So why do we use the consequence section? Well, most people are, when they come on the call, they're stuck in this like indecision, kind of this limbo, right? Almost. Not because they don't want to change, but because they haven't truly understood or felt the cost of staying where they are. They haven't really thought about it. And this isn't about us like fear-mongering or scaring them, right? It's about helping them slow down, reflect, and face the problem, right? Because what happens if they just keep tolerating the problem they told us they want to fix, right? Again, as salespeople, it's our job to help people make the best decision possible for themselves. So if they have this problem, they need to understand, okay, what does life look like? We've discussed what it looks like if you solve it, but let's talk about what keeps happening in your life and what your life will look like if you don't solve it, right? So what are we actually doing in this section? Well, actually, sorry. What does this section do? Let's talk about that first, right? So this section gets them to emotionally register the downside of inaction, right? It gets them to emotionally understand what happens when they don't take action, and why they obviously don't want that. The second thing is we're helping them realize that this is a problem to solve now, not a problem to solve later. This is what we call in sales creating urgency, right? This is what we're helping them do. It builds, like I said, that internal urgency from them. It's without us doing anything. We're just asking a question. It's all coming from them. And then we're also preparing them to take action because they understand the full picture of their current situation, the future, and what staying in their current situation is going to look like for them. So, what are we doing in this section, right? So, take, let's say, one of the problems they already told us about, and you basically say to them, like, okay, this is a great way to transition from the solution phase, so building that, painting that picture and building that future with them, into the consequence. So, okay, like, so that's the top of the mountain, right? It's you achieving desired goal, desired state. But the thing is, there is another side to this, where you don't choose to take the action to get there, and you choose to stay where you are, right? And let's talk about that for a second. Like, what does that look like to you moving forward if you don't take the action to get to XYZ desired state, right? You are, or I say XYZ desired state, it's we're using their words, their emotions, their feelings that they have previously mentioned to us in like the solution phase, right? We're not using our words, we're not assuming anything, we are using the words that they have used. That's it. That's what we're simply doing. That's how you have conversations, right? It shows also to them that you're listening. So, for example, like, what they will say is like, okay, well, yeah, you know, what happens if I don't take the action to get there is nothing changes. Okay, and have you thought about what happens if nothing changes over the next 3 to 6 months? If things keep going the way they're going? And what you're doing here is you're just opening up the idea to your prospects of, okay, what happens, like, really, let me just think about this. Like, what happens if I just stay where I am? What happens if I just don't do anything about this? And you just let them answer. And that is like the main question. You're just asking one or two questions, and then you dig deep into that. So how would, let's say, so that nothing changes, like, okay, let's talk about that for a second. Like, when you say nothing changes, what do you mean by that? Right? Because nothing changes to me versus nothing changes to you mean two very different things. So when you say nothing changes, what do you mean by that? Okay, gotcha. And, like, how would that make you feel? You know, feeling stuck, let's say, they say. Right? And they'll be like, oh, it's making me, you know, sad. Okay, and when you say sad, like, why is that? Why do you feel sad? Because you don't have to. Like, a lot of people are happy with where they're at. Like, why even feel sad? Because I'm not going to be getting what I want in life. Like, this is just a very, like, broad one. But pretty much that's what you're doing. That's all you're doing. And you're just having that open and honest conversation. And you're being extremely curious. And you want to understand and you want to know, really, for this person in front of you, what happens if nothing changes? So the core questions, right? So, like, here are some examples of some core questions that you can use. Have you thought about what would happen if you don't do anything about this? Are you willing to settle for that? Is an amazing question. Because you're making it very clear to them that, like, this is completely up to you. And then you can also say, like, okay, and whose decision is it? Like, who is it up to change this? Who is it up to get you out of this position? Who is it up to get you to XYZ desired state? Again, throughout the whole call, you want to, it's this technique called looping. I've probably mentioned it, but if not, I'm mentioning it again now. Where you are repeating what they have said to you. And this can feel a bit weird at first, right? Something that you're not used to. But the reason we do this is because, again, your prospect words mean more than your words, so use their words. Not against them, just use their words when you're talking with them. And then furthermore, on top of that, it's to remind them of what they have been saying this time, and for them to really feel it. And finally, for them to feel like you're listening so that they actually trust you. Because if people feel listened to and heard, they will trust you. Okay? So, other questions like, how do you feel, for example, like, let's zoom in and let's, you know, skip to the future right now. Let's say you're in the same place 6 months from now. When you think about that, how does that make you feel? Right? Great questions to kind of ask in here, like, how would feeling like XYZ impact your day-to-day life? What kind of effect would that have on your confidence? Right? What does that do to your motivation or your mental state? What does that do to your relationships? Has that already started to affect your career? Right? And then now, a really amazing question that we want to ask. A great question to ask. Why do anything about this now? You don't have to. Tell me, like, why do you want to do anything about this now? And what you're doing here is you're getting the prospect to sell the idea of starting now, right? That is all you're doing. And you're just asking a question. You're being curious. You're getting the prospect to talk about, okay, what happens if I do this now? Why do anything about this now? Because you might ask, why do anything about this now? And they might say, I don't need to do anything about this now. You're right. Like, I don't want to be fair, yeah, I'll sleep on it. Right? You'll know you will have done the whole sales call well, to a point, obviously. If you ask them, why do anything about this now? And they tell you why they really want to do it now and why it's so important for them to do it now. But yeah, I would say the best questions are, it's that transition. So like, okay, now we've understood where you want to go. Like, let's discuss what happens if you don't get there and if you stay where you are. Another great one is, are you willing to settle for that? How would that make you feel? What, again, making the small problem bigger, how would it impact your life outside of like fitness or your career or whatever it may be that you are discussing based on what you're selling? And the big one is like, why do anything about this now? Right? I could go on and on and on about this, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. It's very simple. I just want to explain the why. Because explaining the how is just going too much, is just going to like get you like reading off a script, and I don't want that, right? I could be explaining so much more, but I want to explain why, because that's how you learn, and that's how you actually do things with intention that work. And then after that, really, it's understanding, okay, why does this work, right? And the reason it works is because at this point they've owned their problem, they've pictured and imagined a better future, and now they're seeing what happens if they don't act, if they don't get to where they want to be, right? The thing is, a lot of people live in this false world, false safety net. They say, oh, it's not that bad yet, like I can deal with it. And your job isn't to necessarily scare them, but all you're doing is you're holding up the mirror and you're helping them see clearly. That's it. And when people finally feel the weight and the understanding of staying stuck and staying the same, making a decision becomes so much easier. It's insane how much easier it becomes, right? So helping someone, like it's not about helping someone change. It's not about pushing them. Like I really want to be super clear on this. It's about helping them see the full picture clearly. And when a prospect tells you what their problem is, what they want instead of that, and what happens if they don't fix it, you've done something incredibly powerful. You've helped them make a decision for themselves, right? Because now that they see everything, like the paths in front of them clearly, it's time to show them what walking along the right path and change could look like. So, in the next video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to present your offer, right? How to pitch correctly. And it's not complicated. And the foundation of it is you are doing so without losing trust and maintaining that relationship that you've worked hard to build up until this point in the call. And finally, a tip and hint is looping is a big part of pitching. What I've mentioned, looping, the sales understanding of looping back to what they've said, mentioning it again. All right? So, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.